Hello, welcome to episode 152 of the Craft House Magic podcast. My name's Ellie and I'm coming to you from Norwich in Norfolk in the UK, and today is the 11th of February. So welcome everybody. I hope you've all had a lovely crafty week since the last time I've spoken to you, and I'm here to share all the things that I've been making in the last 7 days. So today I have some knitting, some cross stitch, some dressmaking, one or two confessions. I have a few questions from the Ask Me Anything thread, and also a little bit of information on my shop update at the end of the podcast. So you can find me on Instagram, Ravelry and Facebook as Craft House Magic, and I have my own website, crafthousemagicc.co.uk, where you can find my handmade project bags, hand-dyed yarns, stitch markers, progress keepers, higher knitting needles and accessories, Clover crochet hooks, and also bag making supplies like fabrics and wadding, etc. So we have a couple of make-alongs going on at the moment. We have the Craft 20 a day, which is going on in the Ravelry group and on Instagram, and you can use the hashtag Craft 20 a day. And it's basically chipping away at something that you've been meaning to work on for ages, that's perhaps a bigger project, so that you can get it done. And the make-along is going right to the end of the year. Don't forget you can use the hashtag on Instagram as well as using the Ravelry group. So in the Ravelry group, I'm also doing a make-along for the yarn clubs that I'm doing for this year. So if you want to share what you've been making, go over to the Ravelry group and post what you're making with your yarns. It can be any craft, so I'd love to see what you've been making with them, and I'll be drawing for prizes at the end of each quarter for that. So the Mistletoe Kisses Mal has just finished, so I have drawn for a prize. So there were 95 posts altogether, and the winner was Julie from Indiana, and her Ravelry name was Burrow Knitter, and that was post number 55 that won. So congratulations, Julie. So don't forget to enter the make-alongs that I've been chatting about this morning already, and I better get on with the good stuff then. So first of all, I've got some knitting to show you. I have a finished object, or a couple of finished objects to show you. First of all, I have my Mary Elizabeth hat, and I thought I'd show you how I've blocked it on this balloon. So I basically just soaked my hat in some yarn wash, which is Eucalan that I tend to use, and then I squeezed the moisture out of it, and then I just popped it on a balloon that I'd already blown up. Now what I probably should have done is measure around this balloon to make sure I wasn't blowing it up too big, so we shall see. I will take it off the balloon and see if it fits. I love the centre of this, the way the decreases go down to about 8 stitches, and then you just thread the yarn in to make it a lovely neat centre. And look at that pretty little lace. I think it needed a little bit of blocking just to open up that lace a little bit. So before I try it on, the modifications I did to this pattern, so I did a long tail cast on to cast it on, and then I did a twisted rib, and I did a few more rows instead of the standard rib, and I think it was 8 rows in the pattern. I also modified this lacy bit in that I took some of the eyelets out from this centre part here, and then I added another row of eyelets on the outside, and that's all. The rest of it's just the same pretty much. So let's see what it looks like. I don't know whether it's really going to suit me with my hair like this. I think it'll probably look better. Oh, I don't know. I think that looks okay actually. Yay! So there we are. I think it probably looks better when you can sort of see a little bit of my hair, but I'd probably just pin it in at the sides so it didn't sort of come out. But I really wanted it to be slightly slouchy because I think that sort of looks better on me. So I've no idea what the back looks like, so hopefully it looks alright on the video. So I'm really pleased with that. What I could have done is that I could have blocked it on a plate, make it a bit more like a beret. It's a merino and silk mix. So the yarn is an Eden Cottage yarn, and it is the Titus 4-ply, which is 75% merino and 25% silk, and it just makes such a beautiful material. As soon as I put it into the yarn wash, it sort of relaxed a bit straight away, so I knew that it was going to block out really lovely. I didn't stretch it out too much on the balloon, just to open that lace up just slightly. So the pattern is the Mary Elizabeth Tam by Mary Elizabeth, and it's a free pattern on Ravelry. I have made a few notes on my Ravelry page for what changes I've made, but I need to update the photos on there. Been a bit rubbish at updating my Ravelry pages recently. I need to put the information on so that I can check back later to see what needles I've used, etc. So the next thing I've got to show you is another finished object, but this was knitted by my mother-in-law Liz, but I thought I'd show you. This is knitted from some lovely yarn that I had in my stash that I actually picked up when we went on our honeymoon, so it's a special yarn, and I wanted it as a one skein project because I thought it worked lovely by itself. And I was looking to see what one skein shawl projects that I could do, and this is the lightweight hipster shawl by Locatelli, and it's got some really cool lace patterns on it. I thought that was such an interesting detail, and I thought it worked really well with this yarn. So the pattern is called the Lightweight Hipster by Locatelli, and the yarn that Liz used is called the Three Irish Girls yarn, and it's the Adorn Luxe base, 85% merino and 15% nylon, 430 yards per 100 gram, and it's called the Fire Dance colourway. And this was a yarn that I picked up on our honeymoon in Florida, and I just thought it needed a project that was a sort of one skein project so that I could wear it and remember our honeymoon. Isn't that gorgeous? So there is a heavier weight hipster pattern which I think is in Aran weight yarn, which is much denser, but this is a very lightweight sort of spring type shawl which will be perfect for the oncoming spring. So I'll probably wear it like I normally do, like this, around the neck so you can see that gorgeous lacy bits, or you could wear it with like a shawl pin just to make sure it stayed on, and it would be more like a cowl then. But I'm really pleased with how that came out. I haven't done the tassels yet. I'm hoping to add some tassels on it, but I haven't had chance just to add those on, and I haven't got very much yarn left, so I have this much yarn. I'm going to see if I can put at least some tassels on there. The original pattern has got tassels all the way round the lower edge, but we shall see how many I can make. I might be able to find some yarn out of my scraps that goes with this yarn to do some more of the tassels with, but we shall see. I don't know. I might even have enough. I don't know. It just seemed like there wasn't a lot left, but they're only tiny little tassels, so this might be enough. We shall see. So that's the second thing I've got to show you, and hopefully next week I'll have added some tassels. So the next thing I've got to show you is some mittens that I finished ages ago, but I have actually blocked them now because I've got some blockers, some mitten blockers, which I'll show you in my confessions section. But there they are, all blocked nicely. I just love this pattern, and I think it has opened up the colourwork nicely so that it looks a little bit neater. I'm especially pleased with how the house has come out and the back of the mittens. They just, the feel of the material is just so much nicer when it's been blocked. It's so comfortable. And I shall pop them on to show you what they look like. Ta-da! I absolutely love these, and now they're blocked I'm going to be wearing them lots. There's a lot of snow here at the moment, so perfect timing. So there we go. Really pleased with those. And like I said, I'll show you the blockers in my confessions section. So the yarn that I used for those was blacker yarns, and they're both 4-ply yarns that I used, but the white was a Shetland and the teal was a Jacob yarn, but they mixed together quite nicely because they had a very similar twist to them. And next I have my Cosy Memories blanket to show you, and I have completed the row this time. I think what I'm going to do is next week I'm not going to show you this blanket, but I'll show you every other week so it makes it a bit more interesting. Otherwise I'll keep showing you the same thing all the time. So since the last video I've actually knitted 6 squares. So I did this one here. This one here is actually knitted in the Eden Cottage yarns that I did my hat with, that I showed you just now. I don't know what a lot of the others are. I don't know what these two are or this one, or this one. I think that this is a dandelion and dogwood that my friend Jean knitted a pair of socks with, but she didn't put a label on the little mini when she gifted it to me, but it does look very similar to that colourway, so I think it is that one. So I think that's dandelion and dogwood, and that one there is the one, the same yarn I knitted my hat in. So I'm trying to knit some of the ones that I can actually tell you what they are, but it's coming along very nicely. And that's a full row finished, and I shall try and show you the whole thing, which is going to be a bit difficult. So it's getting quite large. I still want it a lot bigger though. So like I said, I'm not going to show you my Cosy Memories blanket every week, but I'm going to try and show you every 2 weeks, so that I'll have made a decent amount of progress before I show you. And it's getting quite large now. It's sort of foldable, which is lovely. So next I have my cross stitch to show you. I really don't feel as if I've made an awful lot of progress on this week, but I shall show you anyway. I've basically done the roof and the snow on top of the roof, which is starting to make it look a bit more like a proper house now. I'm still not 100% sure I like the lack of contrast between this pale blue and the white of the door and the window, because the original photograph on the pattern, even though I've used the same threads, the contrast doesn't look as defined, but it's looking okay. And hopefully once I've done a little bit more work on it, it'll look a little bit cuter. So I'm using a pattern that's by Cottage Needleworks, and it's called the Winter Welcome pattern. I'm doing mine on a 28 count linen, which is, that's what's called for in the pattern, so it's about the same size as it's supposed to be theoretically. So there we are. Hopefully next week I'll get a lot more done on it. So the next section I've got is my dressmaking section, and I'm very excited to show you a new dress that I've been making this weekend, and it is a Valentine's themed, so that's even more appropriate for this weekend. So Barbara, would you like to pop over? Thank you very much, Barbara. So you can see why it's a Valentine's theme. It's hearts all over it. Actually, if Barbara leans over, you can see the actual fabric a little bit better. So they're like sort of hearts, but they're a little bit splotchy, and it looks a little bit like leopard skin, I suppose. So this is a viscose jersey fabric that I picked up from Rainbow Fabrics just before Christmas, I think. And I was thinking that this would look great as a dress. And somebody suggested a couple of weeks ago that I should do a special Valentine's dress, obviously because we're coming up to Valentine's Day, and I thought, oh, that fabric, I need to use that fabric. It's very appropriate for this time, and also this pattern is one of my Make 9 targets, so I thought, absolutely perfect, I shall make this dress. So this is the Georgie dress, and it's a pattern by Sew Over It. Now I purchased this dress pattern, must be at least 6 months ago, I think, thinking that I'd sew it up straight away, and I didn't get around to it. And I purchased it when the pattern was from size 6 to size 20. Now I'm just over a size 20 in terms of Sew Over It dressmaking patterns, so I had to scale up the pattern a little bit on the side seams, but it wasn't too much effort, but just because I'm basically like one size bigger than the size 20, so it wasn't too hard. But in the last couple of weeks they have increased their sizes up to a size 30 on some of their garments, and this dress is one of those. So it goes from a size 6 to a size 30 now, which I think is absolutely brilliant. I find that with Sew Over It patterns, at least, I use a size 12 on the shoulders, because I must have quite narrow, small shoulders, and then, so between the shoulder and the side seams, I then draft out to the size sort of 22 to make it fit me, and that works out lovely. I know this because I've made several woven garments from Sew Over It before. Then I just followed the same sizes on this jersey pattern. So I made a few other modifications as well. So because I've got quite a large bust and there's no darts in this top as such, what I did was that I just made sure that I'd scaled up to the right width at the sides, and then I extended the bodice a little bit. So I cut the bodice pattern and I cut a small square out of the bodice, and then I dropped that 1.5 inches so that I was extending the length of the bodice to allow for a larger bust, so that it didn't sort of rise up at the front, because that's supposed to be a waistline. I don't tend to do it, so really I should have dropped it 2 inches, but I thought because it's a stretchy fabric, and also with doing this technique you shouldn't really do more than 1.5 inches as well. That's why I stuck to 1.5 inches. And then once I dropped that down, I used my curved ruler just to smooth out that line, obviously because you can't have a pattern piece with a bit drop down. So I smoothed that line, and I did that for both sides. They're basically the same except for some pleats just at the side of this one. So actually they're pretty much the same everywhere else. It's just that this bit is a little bit wider on the one pattern piece, so that they can then be folded and create this pleated detail at the side, which you can't see very well because it is a black background fabric. I really like that detail. It's really nice. So that was one thing that I did, but I also added 1 inch of length to the back skirt panel to allow for my big bum. So I know that on all the dresses that I wear, I've always got to extend it by 1 inch at the back, just to give me a little bit of extra space over the bum area to make the hem straight at the bottom when I finished, which seemed to work out perfectly, which is good. So the only other change I made is I added pockets, which was probably a bad idea. So because this is a viscose jersey, it is a very drapey fabric. So I thought I'm just going to challenge myself and see if I can manage it. And what I basically did is I used the pockets from the Indigo dress, which is a basic pocket bag. And I did it so the seam on the waistline, the pocket bag actually just went into the top of the waistline, just to give it a little bit of extra support. And when I joined them to the panel pieces of the skirt, I used some 6mm stretch elastic just to give it a little bit of stability there, and I did that on both the front and the back of the pocket bag. And then I've obviously joined the skirt pieces together and the pockets, and then once I'd actually joined them together, that I top stitched just the top of the pocket and the bottom of the pocket, just to make sure that it laid over where it should do, right, rather than gaping too much. And I think it worked okay. It's not the most brilliant job, it's just that I thought, well, it might be handy just to have a little pocket, just so that you can stick a few things in there. I do love a pocket. I'm not sure whether it's good enough to put your phone in there, because the phone is a little bit heavy, but if you've got like a lip balm or some tissues in there, that would be work fine. And that is all the modifications I did to it. Quite a lot of people say that Sew Over It patterns, the sleeves are quite narrow, but because I've got quite a big bust and a big tummy compared to my arms, I actually found them quite good. So I just double checked that those arms were going to fit me before I cut out the pattern to start with. I just give it a quick measure and worked out that it was going to fit. What you could do is, if you've got a jersey t-shirt pattern like I'd made the Agnes before in, that's obviously a jersey pattern, you could put the pattern piece over the top just to make sure that the sleeve is going to fit. This is basically a wrap over top, and the bodice can be lined. That's what the pattern instructions say, and I did that for this one. Because I was using a viscose fabric anyway, I just used the same fabric on the inside as the outside of the garment, but I was running very low on fabric, so actually the lining is, the pattern pieces are actually cut upside down, because this is a directional print with the hearts having to be the right way up. So I thought, it doesn't matter if the lining is upside down. And actually the back bodice, I managed to cut out the back piece fine, but I lined the back of the inside as well, and I ended up having to join two pieces, but you can't see the seam or anything, so that's good. I just overlocked the seam inside, so there's only a very small seam allowance on the inside. So there we go. The arms aren't lined and the skirt isn't lined either, but I'm just going to wear them with either leggings underneath or some nice thick tights, I think. It's a sort of a wintry dress, I think, anyway, but it's very, very cozy because it's stretchy all over. I used some clear elastic to stabilise the shoulder seams, as well as the seams that cross over here on both sides. They go right to the side and up to the top. I did both of those with the clear elastic, and I also stabilised the waistline with that, and that's the same clear elastic I used to stabilise the pockets as well. But I love this dress, absolutely love it, and it's going to be something for cosy to wear on Valentine's Day. Very appropriate. So I'm going to do some twirls in the lounge because it's snowing outside and I'm not going to be trudging around in the snow with a dress on. So I shall show you some twirls in the lounge. Thank you very much, Barbara. So I also forgot to mention, actually, there's two options for the skirt. There's this version of the skirt, which isn't gathered, and then there's a gathered version. This version is a little bit more fluted at the bottom, whereas the gathered version is more of a straight version. But I do like things to be quite swishy, so I chose the swishy version. I like how it's a bit more of a smooth finish around the waistband. So you can see that I've got my pockets in there. It does gape very slightly because of the nature of the material, so I probably wouldn't use this viscose jersey for having pockets in of this type in the future, but I just wanted to have a go anyway. I really like the length of it. It's a really nice, elegant length, and the crossover of the top feels like it's really sort of secure and you're not going to have anything peeking out that shouldn't do. I did actually crop the length of the sleeves, which I forgot to tell you about as well. So it's normally a full length sleeves, but I do like a 3/4 length sleeve to just to make it more comfortable, because I only end up rolling my sleeves up as well. I'll give you a twirl. So I thought I'd quickly show you it off Barbara and inside out so you can see what the inside looks like. So you can see that the whole of the front bodice and the back bodice is fully lined, and this is obviously the inside of the fabric where it isn't lined. And I used my cover stitch machine just to finish the seams off nicely on the cuffs and on the bottom of the dress. You can see the pockets I've used. And I actually understitched the pockets once I'd put them on, that's why there's a double line of stitching. I probably should have overlocked these side seams before I put the pockets on, but I think it'll be alright. It's a jersey, so it won't fray. I did use the overlocker to finish off most of the rest of the garment. There was a couple of places on this fabric where there was like little bits of white, which is obviously a fault in the fabric, but this is the lining that I've used that little bit for, so it didn't matter. But I was running so short on fabric that I had to use up every little scrap basically, and you can just see on the inside that there's a centre seam on the back bodice just on the inside panel, just so that I could get the inside lining, because I thought it would be awkward to have the front lined and then the back bodice not lined the way it was constructed. There we are. I think that's all I've got to say about my dress, but I'm really excited to wear it, and I'm quite pleased that I had to go with pockets. But I think in the future it's best not to have pockets with a viscose jersey, but I think I'd be fine with a cotton jersey, and this dress you can do with a slightly heavier weight jersey as well, so it might be interesting to try that out. So next I have my confessions section. So I've wanted to buy some mitten blockers for ages because I haven't got any, and I thought because I was ordering mitten blockers I ought to order some sock blockers as well to try a new company. So I wanted to try a company called Woodico, which is a company in Europe. And I placed my order in early January, I think, but I think that they were so overcome with orders that my order only came this week. But they are all handmade, so that's quite understandable really. So these are the sock blockers I bought, and I carefully considered what sizes to buy, and I worked out that I needed the small really for most of my socks, so I picked those. And I also have a couple of pairs of mitten blockers to show you, but I did notice that when they come through they obviously had not left the varnish to dry enough, and there was paper between the blockers, and on some places there's little bits of paper stuck, so I'm going to drop them a message just to say that there was paper stuck to mine, just so that they'd perhaps leave it a little bit longer in the future, because they put a message on their Etsy shop that they were extremely busy, so they were probably trying to get things out as quickly as possible. So in order to block these style of mitts with the pointy bit on the end, I wanted some of these. So I got some heart mitten blockers, and they come with the little thumbs as well. It's quite good that these are separate, because you can just pop that in first and then put the mitten blocker in afterwards. So I got a set of those, and they're gorgeous. But again, there are some places where the paper's stuck a bit. I just left it on so that I could show you what they came like. But to be honest, the rest of the blockers have come out really lovely. It's just that the paper's stuck to them, which is a bit annoying. Really, really pretty though. And I got some of this style mitten blockers, because I thought that if I'm doing mittens that haven't got that triangle bit on the end, the rounded one might be useful. And these came with the thumbs separately as well. There are little holes that you can attach the thumbs to, but I don't think that I'm going to bother attaching them to it. I'll just pop these into the mitten before I then put the actual mitten blocker on. But aren't they pretty? I really love the fact that they've got these little heart shapes on them. And I just love the butterfly on these. So I'm really pleased that I did actually order them. Although I am going to message about the paper sticking to them. They do feel like a nice quality wood. And I'm really pleased with the look of them, apart from the paper sticking to them a little bit. They came with some little rings like this, and I assume that's to sort of hang them up, so that when they're drying you don't have to sort of lean your knitted object against a radiator or anything. They can be hung up, and I suppose you could use these to attach the thumbs to them, so you don't lose the thumbs either. So that's good. So that's my first naughty purchase. I will leave a link to their Etsy shop, their Woody Co, on Etsy. But I got something else to show you. I have fabric. Now, I didn't purchase this fabric. I was very, very kindly gifted a voucher from the lovely Trisha, who's from the Best Day Ever podcast, and she co-hosts the podcast with the lovely Arthella as well. So I do recommend their podcast. They have such a lovely range of things that they like to make, and they're the two loveliest ladies ever. So I do recommend you go over and watch their podcast as well. But I have to show you this fabric. So the fabric is from a shop called Selvage and Bolts. Now, Trisha won a voucher when she participated in the 100 Acts of Sewing challenge, and she had a voucher from a UK shop. But of course, the postage to the US these days is quite expensive. She gifted the fabric voucher to me, so I purchased some fabric. And look at this. Isn't this the most gorgeous fabric in the world? This is a viscose fabric, and it is so drapey and beautiful. It almost feels like silk. I absolutely love it. It's a large scale print, so I'm trying to think whether I'd get away with a dress or a skirt in it. I have 2.5 meters, because that's all they had left on the shop, and I think I could probably get away with some of the dress patterns that I've got for a viscose. I've certainly got enough for a skirt. It's whether I can sort of get away with wearing this print all over, if that makes sense. But isn't it beautiful? I've never seen such a beautiful large scale print before. I absolutely fell in love with it. So thank you so much, Trisha. I am absolutely over the moon with it. So thank you ever so much. And I will leave links to the Best Day Ever podcast in the description bar down below, as well as Arthella and Trisha's Instagram pages as well. So I have a few questions from the Ask Me Anything thread on the Ravelry group. So first of all, I have a question from Gillian. And Gillian says, with my Colourwork mittens, don't my fingers get caught on the inside of the mitten? Now, no, because the floats are only ever less than 5 stitches long, so when you actually put your hand in, these floats are not big enough to put your finger or thumb through. So you can just literally slip your hand in and not worry about any floats getting in the way. If I pop this inside out, you might be able to see it a bit better. It's quite a dense fabric, so it's hard to poke inside out. So there we are. You can see that those floats are quite small, really. You're not going to get your fingers caught in there. I think if you were doing children's mittens, you'd have to be careful about doing floats as long as 5 stitches. I think you'd have to make them a bit shorter, but for adults your fingers aren't going to go through those. I have a second question from Cara, and she was asking me, what do I consider as a proper afternoon tea? Now I do love my afternoon tea. I haven't actually been out for a proper afternoon tea for ages though, because we've obviously been stuck in with the coronavirus restrictions, but I do like to go out for afternoon tea, and I do like it when they do lots of variety of different teas. I do like trying different teas, especially when they do different fruit flavours. I had a strawberries and cream flavour once in a really posh hotel in London that me and my friend Liz went to, and that was amazing. And the strawberries and cream tea, wow, that was amazing. It just tasted exactly like strawberries and cream. So a really lovely flavoured tea is number 1. Number 2 is fancy sandwiches with the crusts cut off, because you have to have those. I do like things like tuna and cucumber, or salmon, or cheese and chutney. Oh my goodness, cheese with chutney when they're fancy, absolutely lovely. And then of course you have to have the best cakes, and I think that without a doubt the most important cake in an afternoon tea is a scone. And it's just, they have to be lovely big fresh scones. And then of course, because it's afternoon tea, you can't just have one cake, you have to have a choice of a couple of others as well to eat. And I say choice, but I mean a variety of other cakes to eat all at once, because I'm greedy and I like to have all the cakes. But there has to be a little bit of something chocolatey in there, and then something a little bit fruity as well. So I think I've had in the past like a passion fruit mousse or something would be rather lovely. So that's what my favourite afternoon tea would consist of. And of course you'd have to go in a fancy floral dress as well. So that's why I've had to wear a floral dress today to show you. I forgot to say, actually, I've been popping links to what I'm wearing in the podcast in the description bar down below on every episode, starting from I think last week, just so that if anybody does want to know what I'm wearing, there's a link in there as well. So the last question I've got from the Ask Me Anything thread is from Katie, and she asked me to show some of the yarn clubs so far this year. So I'm just going to show January, because I'm pretty sure that most people will have got theirs already. But if you haven't got them, don't watch the next few minutes of the podcast. I'll put a timestamp in the description bar down below if you then want to catch up with the shop update at the end of the podcast as well, so you don't get any spoilers. First of all, I'm going to show you the music from the movies from January, and this is inspired from the film Labyrinth and the song As the World Falls Down. And I love this song, it's so whimsical and lovely. And this is the colours that I've designed for January. So it's basically, there's blue greys and blues underneath with some purple splashes, and there's also some amber in there as well. I just wanted to incorporate all the beautiful colours in that scene, and then I've combined it with a grey mini as well. So that's quite a sort of whimsical yarn for January. And then I have the mixtape minis, and these are the set for January. So first of all, here we have Glen Medeiros and Nothing's Gonna Change My Love for You, and it's basically inspired by the sandy beach and the ocean in the video. If anyone's not seen that video, you should watch it. It's the cheesiest, 80th music video ever. And then the next one is Boys of Summer by Don Henley, and I was going with another sort of beach theme because that's what we need in January really. It's another sort of beach theme, but there's deeper blues and then a sort of warm brown in there as well for sort of a different type of a beach theme. And then next we have Jump for My Love by the Pointer Sisters, and this gorgeous deep bronze was inspired by the dresses that they had on in that video. I just loved them. So that's what the bronzy colour is for, and I've put some darker speckles in there as well because I thought that complemented it nicely. The next one is another Pointer Sisters song, and this is called I'm So Excited. And I've incorporated the greens and the bronze colours from their music video as well, which I thought went nicely with the other yarns. And then last but not least, I have the Safety Dance by Men Without Hats, and that is a combination of blues and greens that is basically a good representation of the music video, because it's basically them skipping along in the countryside, which is lots of blues and greens, and those I designed to work well together as a set, and that's what I'm doing with the rest of the clubs as well. So each of the sets of 5 go nicely together in terms of colour. Even though the songs seem quite sort of random sometimes, they are designed to sort of go together nicely as a set. I'm not going to be showing every month's on the podcast. They're going to be a bit of a secret. So next month's yarn club, so it'll be the March yarn club, will be available to purchase for pre-order on the 19th of February. So that's Friday the 19th of February at 7 PM GMT. All the January and February yarn clubs were sold out, so I won't be doing those again. Some of the colourways might be re-released next year as permanent colourways, but they won't be available until then. So last of all, I've just got my shop update information. So first of all, I just want to say that I'm getting some more of the higher knitting needles in stock for this Friday's shop update. That's tomorrow the 12th of February at 7 PM, and they will include 2.25 and 2.5mm sharp flyer needles, as well as the 60cm fixed sharp 2.5mm needles that have been out of stock in the past. Some of the steel needles still haven't come into stock at the warehouse, so I haven't been able to restock those in my shop, but hopefully I will do in the next couple of weeks. The sets for the flyers are also out of stock at the warehouse. I tend to restock every week or so, but I will keep you posted as and when the steel flyers are back in stock. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I shall see you in the next episode. Bye!